He was wearing a faded hoodie and sweatpants, clutching a ticket that cost more than the flight attendant's annual salary. But when Damon Cross tried to take his seat in 1A, he wasn't greeted with champagne. He was greeted with a threat. They thought he was a thug. They thought he was a fraud. They laughed when he politely asked to speak to the pilot. But the laughter died instantly when he pulled out his phone and dialed the personal number of the man who owned the very plane they were standing on. You are not going to believe the look on their faces when the karma hit. This is the story the airlines tried to bury. The sliding glass doors of JFK's Terminal 4 parted with a mechanical hiss, admitting a gust of biting October wind and a man who looked like he had no business being there. Damon Cross adjusted the hood of his charcoal grey pullover, pulling it slightly lower over his brow. It was 6:00 a.m. on a Tuesday. The terminal was a hive of frantic energy. Businessmen in three-piece suits checking Rolexes, families dragging screaming toddlers, and the low, constant hum of rolling luggage on polished terrazzo. Damon moved through the chaos with a slow, deliberate calm. He wasn't rushing. He didn't have luggage, save for a battered leather rucksack slung casually over one shoulder. To the casual observer, he looked like a tired student, or perhaps an off-duty mechanic heading home after a graveyard shift. He certainly didn't look like the man who had just closed a $450 million acquisition deal for his AI logistics firm, Cross Logos, less than 12 hours ago. He walked past the snaking lines of economy check-in, past the chaotic self-serve kiosks, and headed straight for the velvet-roped sanctuary marked Stratosphere Class Priority Check-in. The area was empty, save for a single agent behind the high marble counter. She was tapping furiously on her keyboard, her blonde hair pulled back in a bun so tight it pulled at the corners of her eyes. Her name tag read, Cynthia. As Damon approached the red carpet, a security guard standing near the entrance, a burly man named Officer Miller, stepped sideways, blocking the path. He didn't speak initially. He just stared at Damon's chest, then down at his sneakers. "Excuse me," Damon said, his voice deep and gravelly from lack of sleep. "I'm checking in for Flight 882 to London." Miller smirked, crossing his arms. "Kiosk is back there, pal. This lane is for Stratosphere members and first class only." "I know," Damon said, reaching into his pocket. Miller's hand instantly dropped to his belt, hovering near his taser. The tension spiked in a microsecond. Damon froze, realized the optics, and moved his hand very slowly, retrieving his passport and a printed boarding pass. He held them out. "I'm flying first." Miller didn't take the paper. He leaned in, sniffing the air as if looking for the scent of marijuana or cheap alcohol. Finding neither, he scowled. "Let me see that." He snatched the boarding pass, squinting at it as if trying to decode a forgery. Damon Cross. Seat 1A. "System's probably glitching," Miller muttered, more to himself than Damon. He handed the pass back with a dismissive flick of his wrist. "Go ahead, but don't expect them to be nice to you in there." Damon didn't reply. He stepped onto the red carpet and approached the marble counter. Cynthia didn't look up. She was busy applying a fresh coat of clear nail polish. "One moment," she said, her voice dripping with the kind of icy detachment reserved for telemarketers and tax auditors. Damon waited. 30 seconds. A minute. A man in a bespoke navy suit walked up behind Damon. Cynthia's head snapped up instantly. "Good morning, Mr. Sterling," she beamed, her voice transforming into a melodic song. "So good to see you again. London for business?" "Always, Cynthia, always," the man chucked, stepping around Damon as if he were a potted plant. "Excuse me," Damon said, stepping back in front of the man. "I was next." Cynthia's smile vanished. She looked at Damon with a mixture of confusion and disgust. Sir, please step aside so I can help this gentleman. Economy check-in is—" "I'm not in economy," Damon said, placing his passport on the marble. The sound was sharp, echoing slightly. "I'm in 1A. The name is Cross." Cynthia stared at the passport. Then she looked at the man in the suit, Mr. Sterling, and rolled her eyes. A silent communication passed between them. Can you believe the audacity? "Sir," Cynthia sighed, "first-class tickets are upwards of $15,000. If you're looking for an upgrade, or if you're lost—" "Scan the passport, Cynthia," Damon said. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't aggressive. He was just tired. With a dramatic huff, she snatched the document and slapped it onto the scanner. She stared at her screen, waiting for the invalid error message to pop up so she could call security and have this riffraff removed. Beep. The screen flashed green. Passenger confirmed. Cross Damon. Status: VIP. Cynthia blinked. She hit the refresh key. The green light remained. She looked at Damon, her mouth slightly open. There was no apology in her eyes, only suspicion. She printed the boarding pass, handling it by the very edge as if it were contaminated. "Gate B12, she said flatly, sliding it across the counter without looking at him. "Lounge access is included, but try not to disturb the other guests." Damon took the pass. "I'll do my best." As he walked away, he heard Mr. Sterling whisper loudly, "Affirmative action is getting out of hand, isn't it?" Cynthia giggled. "Tell me about it. Probably a rapper or something." Damon didn't turn around. He had heard it all before. He just gripped the strap of his bag tighter and headed for security. He needed coffee. He needed silence. But mostly, he needed to get to London to meet with Harrison Wells, the legendary billionaire and owner of Sky High Airways, regarding the philanthropic initiative they were launching next week. Harrison had insisted Damon fly on his airline. "Best service in the skies, Damon," Harrison had boomed over the phone. "My crew will treat you like royalty." Damon smirked as he stepped onto the escalator. "So far, Harrison, your crew is failing. The Sky High Lounge was an exercise in opulence. Gold leaf ceilings, leather armchairs that cost more than a Honda Civic, and a buffet serving caviar and Wagyu sliders. When Damon entered, the room went quiet. Spoons paused halfway to mouths. Newspapers were lowered. He ignored the stares, grabbed a bottle of sparkling water, and sat in a corner facing the tarmac. He pulled out his laptop, a heavily modified, sticker-covered machine that housed the proprietary algorithms worth billions, and began to work. He lost track of time until the PA system chimed. "Flight 882 to London. Heathrow First Class and Diamond Status passengers, please proceed to gate B12 for boarding." Damon packed up and walked to the gate. The crowd at B12 was dense. He bypassed the long line of weary travelers and approached the priority lane. Standing at the podium was the gate agent, a frantic-looking man named Greg. Greg was currently arguing with a young couple about carry-on weight limits. When he saw Damon approach the priority lane, he held up a hand. "Hold it, boss," Greg barked, not breaking eye contact with the couple. "Zone 1 only right now. Zone 4 and 5 board in 20 minutes. Damon stopped. He held up his boarding pass. "I'm in Zone 1. Greg finally looked at him. He scanned Damon's attire, the hoodie, the loose sweatpants, the beat-up Nikes. He laughed, a short, sharp bark of disbelief. "Look, buddy, I don't have time for jokes. Zone 1 is for first class. You're in the wrong line. Go wait with the others." "Read the pass, Greg," Damon said, thrusting the paper forward. Greg snatched it, ready to circle the Zone 4 he was sure was there. His eyes scanned the ticket. Seat 1A, Zone 1. Greg frowned. He looked at his computer screen, then back at the ticket. He typed something in. "This is weird." "What's weird?" Damon asked. The system says this ticket was purchased yesterday. Full fare. Cash. Greg looked at Damon with renewed suspicion. Whose credit card did you use? The question hung in the air, heavy and ugly. Excuse me? Damon's voice dropped an octave. Are you accusing me of something? I'm just saying, Greg stammered, realizing he might have crossed a line, but too proud to back down. We get a lot of credit card fraud on these international routes. Young guys, stolen cards, just doing my job. My card is my own, Damon said coldly. Run it again if you want. Call the bank, or let me board the plane I paid $12,000 to be on. Greg hesitated. The line behind Damon was growing. People were grumbling. A woman in a fur coat tapped Damon on the shoulder. Young man, some of us actually have places to be. Stop holding up the line and go to the back. Damon turned to her. She was elderly, dripping in jewelry. I have a place to be too, Mom. Seat 1A. She scoffed. Likely story. Greg, sensing a scene, decided to pass the buck. He ripped the stub off the boarding pass and handed it back. Fine. Board. But the flight crew will do a secondary ID check. If this is fake, you're leaving in handcuffs. I look forward to it, Damon said. He walked down the jet bridge. The tunnel was cool and smelled of jet fuel. His heart was beating a little faster now. It wasn't fear, it was anger. A slow, simmering heat that he had learned to control over years of boardroom battles. But this was different. This wasn't business. This was personal. He reached the aircraft door. Standing there, impeccable in her navy blue uniform with the gold sky-high scarf, was the chief purser. Her name tag read Patricia Halloway. She was tall, with a smile that looked like it had been practiced in a mirror for hours. She was greeting the passenger ahead of Damon, Mr. Sterling from check-in. Mr. Sterling, welcome back, she cooed, checking his stub. Seat 2A. Right this way. Can I get you a glass of Dom Perignon before takeoff? That would be lovely, Patricia, Sterling said, stepping inside. Patricia turned back to the door, her smile resetting. Then she saw Damon. The smile faltered. It didn't disappear, but it changed. It became tight, strained. The corners of her mouth twitched. She looked past him, checking the jet bridge to see if the actual first-class passenger was behind him. Boarding pass? She asked, her tone clipped. She didn't say, welcome aboard. She didn't smile. Damon handed it to her. She looked at it. 1A. She looked at him. She looked at his hoodie. She looked at his bag. There must be a mistake, she muttered. No mistake, Damon said, stepping toward the cabin. Patricia stepped in front of him, physically blocking the aisle. She was small, but her presence was formidable. Sir, wait. I need to verify this. The gate agent just verified it, Damon said, his patience fraying, and the check-in agent before him. Yes, well, mistakes happen, Patricia said, her voice rising so that the passengers settling into the first-class cabin could hear. Heads turned. Mr. Sterling was watching from seat 2A with an amused smirk. Is there a problem, Patricia? Sterling called out. Just a seating duplicate, Mr. Sterling, Patricia called back, her voice sweet again. Then she turned to Damon, her face hardening. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to wait here in the galley while I sort this out. I can't have you cluttering up the first-class aisle. Cluttering, Damon repeated. Just stand there. She pointed to a corner near the lavatory. Do not sit down. Damon took a breath. He looked at Patricia Halloway. He memorized her face. He memorized her name. Fine, Damon said. I'll wait. He stood in the galley, watching as other passengers boarded. He watched them get offered champagne. He watched them get hot towels. No one offered him water. No one offered to take his jacket. He was invisible. yet painfully conspicuous. After 10 minutes, the flow of passengers stopped. The cabin door was about to close. Patricia walked back to the galley, holding a manifest. She looked angry. "Well?" Damon asked. "The system lists you in 1A, she admitted, looking as if the words tasted like vinegar. "But I know what this is." "Do you?" "Employee pass," she whispered conspiratorially. "Or a contest winner." "That's it, isn't it? You won a radio contest." Damon stared at her. "I bought the ticket." "Right," she said sarcastically. "Well, listen to me. I run a very specific service in this cabin. Our clientele expects a certain atmosphere. I don't want any trouble from you. No loud music, no reclined seat during meals, and do not harass the other passengers." "Are you finished?" Damon asked. "For now," she said. "Take your seat, but I'll be watching you." Damon walked into the cabin. He found seat 1A. It was a spacious suite with a lie-flat bed. He tossed his rucksack into the overhead bin. "Excuse me!" The voice came from seat 1B. It was the woman from the gate, the one in the fur coat. Her name was Mrs. Worthington. "That bin is for first-class luggage," she snapped. "Not for gym bags." "My seat is 1A, Damon said, pointing to the placard. "This is my bin." "It's touching my Louis Vuitton," she hissed. "Move it." Damon ignored her. He sat down and buckled his belt. He closed his eyes, trying to find his center. "Just 7 hours," he told himself. 7 hours and I'm in London. But it wasn't going to be 7 hours. It wasn't even going to be 7 minutes before the real trouble started. The plane hadn't even left the gate when the cockpit door opened. Out stepped the captain. Captain Rutherford. A man with silver hair and a jawline that suggested he spent more time in front of a mirror than reading flight manuals. He walked straight to Patricia, who whispered something in his ear. She pointed at Damon. Captain Rutherford's eyes narrowed. He nodded, adjusted his tie, and marched down the aisle toward seat 1A. Damon opened his eyes to find the captain looming over him. "Sir," Rutherford boomed, his voice projecting so the whole cabin could hear. "We have a problem." Captain Rutherford didn't just stand in the aisle, he occupied it like a monument to authority. He braced one hand on the overhead bin, right on top of Mrs. Worthington's Louis Vuitton bag, though she notably didn't scold him, and leaned down, invading Damon's personal space. "The problem," Rutherford said, his voice a low, controlled baritone that vibrated with menace, "is that I have a report from my chief purser that you are being belligerent, non-compliant and aggressive toward the crew." Damon stared at him, unblinking. "Belligerent? I haven't said 10 words since I boarded." "Don't interrupt me," Rutherford snapped. "That right there, that attitude, that's exactly what I'm talking about." A murmur of agreement rippled through the first-class cabin. Mr. Sterling, swirling his champagne in seat 2A, shook his head loudly. "He was harassing the gate agent too, Captain. Saw it myself. Held up the whole line." Damon turned his head slowly to look at Sterling. "I was trying to get them to read my ticket, just like I'm trying to get you to realize you're making a mistake." "I don't make mistakes," Rutherford sneered. "I've been flying for 30 years. I know a disruptive passenger when I see one. Now, Patricia tells me she doesn't feel safe serving you, and if my crew isn't safe, this plane doesn't move." Patricia stepped forward from the galley, wringing her hands theatrically. She looked the picture of the victim. "I'm sorry, Captain," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "A perfect performance. The way he looked at me. And he refused to follow instructions about the overhead bins. I'm just trying to do my job, but I don't feel comfortable being in a confined space with him for 7 hours." "There you have it," Rutherford said, straightening up. In aviation, safety is paramount. We have a zero-tolerance policy for intimidation." Damon felt a cold knot of fury tightening in his stomach. It was a setup, a perfect, airtight setup. They used the buzzwords, safety, comfort, intimidation, that acted like magic spells in an airport. Once a crew member claimed they felt unsafe, logic left the building. "Captain," Damon said, his voice deadly calm, "I am a paying customer. I paid $12,000 for this seat. I have meetings in London that affect the livelihoods of hundreds of people. If you remove me, you are not just inconveniencing a passenger, you are engaging in discrimination." The word hung in the air like smoke. Mrs. Worthington gasped. "Oh, here we go, playing the race card." Rutherford's face turned a shade of crimson. "Discrimination? You think this is about race? Son, I don't care if you're purple. You are a threat to the order of this cabin, and now you're accusing me of bigotry? That's the final straw." Rutherford reached for his radio clipped to his shoulder. "Tower, this is Sky High 882, requesting Port Authority police to the gate immediately. We have a non-compliant passenger refusing to deplane. Level 3 threat." Level 3. That was the code for a life-threatening disturbance. Damon knew it. He knew it because his company, Cross Logos, designed the threat assessment software used by half the major airports in the world. "You just filed a false federal report," Damon said quietly. "Save it for the judge," Rutherford spat. "You have two choices. You walk off this plane now, and maybe we don't press charges. Or the police drag you off, you go to jail, and you end up on the no-fly list for the rest of your life." Damon looked around the cabin. Every pair of eyes was hostile. Mr. Sterling was filming on his phone, grinning. Mrs. Worthington was clutching her pearls. Patricia was smirking behind her hand. They wanted a show. They wanted the angry black man to explode. They wanted him to scream, to fight, to prove them right. Damon unbuckled his seatbelt. The click was audible in the silent cabin. "I'm not leaving," Damon said. "Not until I speak to someone with actual authority." "I am the authority," Rutherford shouted, losing his composure. "This is my ship. Get off." "Make me," Damon whispered. Rutherford stepped back, his face purple. "Fine. Have it your way." He turned to Patricia. "Clear the jet bridge. Let the boys in blue handle this trash." 3 minutes. That's how long it took for the heavy thud of boots to echo down the jet bridge. 2 Port Authority officers squeezed through the aircraft door. They were big, flushed, and clearly ready for a fight. They saw Captain Rutherford pointing a shaking finger at seat 1A. "That's him," Rutherford said. "Refused a direct order from the captain, threatening the crew. Get him out of here." The lead officer, whose name tag read Sergeant Kowalski, marched up to Damon. He had his hand on his baton. "Sir, stand up, turn around, hands behind your back." Damon didn't move. "Officer, I would like to report a crime." Kowalski blinked. "The only crime happening here is trespassing. The captain wants you gone. That means you're legally trespassing on a federal aircraft. Stand up, or we will physically remove you." "I haven't done anything," Damon said, raising his hands openly. "Check the cameras. Ask the other passengers, the honest ones." "He was threatening to hit the stewardess," Mr. Sterling shouted from seat 2A. "I saw him raise his fist." It was a blatant lie, a horrific, damaging lie. But in that moment, it was truth because a man in a bespoke suit said it. Sergeant Kowalski's eyes hardened. He grabbed Damon's arm, his grip like a vice. "That's it. You're done." He yanked Damon out of the seat. Damon stumbled but caught his footing. He didn't resist. He knew that if he pulled away, even an inch, they would tase him. He let them twist his arm behind his back. "You're making a mistake," Damon said. wincing as the officer pushed his wrist up toward his shoulder blades. Yeah. Tell it to the booking officer, Kowalski grunted. They shoved him toward the aisle. As he was marched past the galley, Patricia Holloway was standing there. She wasn't just watching. She was gloating. She leaned in close as he passed. "I told you," she whispered, her voice like venom. "You don't belong here. Go back to coach, or better yet, go back to the street." Damon stopped. The officer shoved him, but Damon planted his feet. He was strong, gym-honed muscle under that baggy hoodie, and for a second he was an immovable object. "Officer," Damon said, his voice projecting clearly, "I am complying. But before you drag me off this plane and create a PR nightmare that will bankrupt this airline, I have one request." "You don't get requests," Captain Rutherford barked from the cockpit doorway. "Get him off." "I want to make a phone call," Damon said. "Right here. On speaker. 1 minute. If the person on the other end says I should leave, I will walk off peacefully. I won't even ask for a refund." Kowalski hesitated. He looked at the captain. The situation was de-escalating, at least physically. If a phone call got this guy off the plane without a wrestling match, it was less paperwork for him. "Who you gonna call?" Kowalski asked, a smirk playing on his lips. "Your lawyer? Your mama?" The cabin erupted in laughter. Mr. Sterling guffawed. "Probably his bail bondsman." Damon didn't smile. He looked at Captain Rutherford. "I'm going to call the owner of this plane." Rutherford laughed so hard he started coughing. "The owner? You mean the shareholders? Or do you think you have Harrison Wells on speed dial?" "Actually," Damon said, "I do." The laughter in the cabin grew louder. It was hysterical now. They thought he was delusional. "Let him make the call," Rutherford said, wiping tears of mirth from his eyes. "This I have to see. Go ahead, big shot. Call Harrison Wells. Let's see if he picks up for the guy in the hoodie who can't afford a belt." Kowalski loosened his grip on Damon's arm. "Make it quick, buddy. You got 60 seconds. Damon reached into his pocket with his free hand. He pulled out his phone. His thumb hovered over the screen. He found the contact. H. Wells. Personal. He hit dial. He pressed the speaker button. He held the phone up in the silent, mocking cabin. "Ring. Ring." "He's not answering," Patricia mocked. What a surprise. "Roaring." Then the line clicked open. The voice that came through the speaker was unmistakable. It was booming, energetic, and familiar to anyone who watched business news. "Damon, my boy, I thought you'd be in the air by now. Don't tell me you're calling to back out of the London deal, because I've already ordered the champagne." The silence that fell over the cabin was instant and absolute. It was a physical weight. Mr. Sterling's champagne glass paused halfway to his mouth. Mrs. Worthington's jaw went slack. Patricia Holloway's face went the color of cottage cheese. Damon looked at the phone, then up at Captain Rutherford. Rutherford looked like he had been struck by lightning. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. "No, Harrison," Damon said into the phone, his eyes locked on the captain's terror-stricken face. "I'm not backing out, but I am having a little trouble with the royal treatment you promised me." Harrison Wells's voice shifted instantly. The jovial billionaire was gone. The ruthless tycoon arrived. "Trouble? What kind of trouble? Are they delayed?" "Not delayed," Damon said calmly. "I'm currently being held by the police in the galley of your aircraft. Your captain and chief purser have accused me of being a security threat. They're claiming I threatened the crew. They're about to drag me off the plane in handcuffs." "What?" The roar from the phone was so loud that Sergeant Kowalski actually took a step back. "Who is doing this?" "Damon, are you safe?" "I'm fine, Harrison. But they don't seem to believe I am who I say I am. They think my ticket is fraudulent. and apparently my hoodie doesn't meet the dress code for seat 1A. Put the captain on. Now." Damon held the phone out to Rutherford. The captain's hands were shaking, visibly shaking. He looked at the phone as if it were a live grenade. He looked at Damon, and for the first time, he really saw him. He saw the confidence. He saw the intelligence. He realized that the thug he had been mocking held the captain's entire career in his palm. He wants to speak to you," Damon said. Rutherford reached out. His fingers fumbled with the device. He brought it to his ear, but Damon didn't let go. "Speaker, Captain. Everyone should hear this, since everyone had something to say earlier." Rutherford swallowed hard. "Hello? Mr. Wells? Who am I speaking to?" Harrison's voice was ice cold. "This is Captain Rutherford, Flight 882. "Rutherford," Harrison said, the name sounding like a curse. "I have known Damon Cross for 5 years. He is a visionary, a genius, and a man of impeccable character. He just closed a $500 million deal that will revolutionize my logistics chain. And you are telling me that you have the police manhandling my guest because you didn't like his sweatshirt?" "Sir, there was a report," the purser said. Rutherford stammered, sweat beading on his forehead. He looked at Patricia. Patricia was pressed against the galley wall, trying to melt into the metal. She was shaking her head frantically, mouthing, "No, no, no." "I don't care what the purser said," Harrison bellowed. "I want to know what you did. Did you verify his identity? Did you de-escalate? Or did you profile one of the most important men in tech because you're an incompetent dinosaur?" "Sir, strictly following protocol." "Protocol?" Harrison laughed, a dark, dangerous sound. "Here is your new protocol, Rutherford. You are to apologize to Mr. Cross immediately. Then you are to upgrade him to anything he wants, though he already bought the best seat, so good luck with that. And then, Rutherford, you are going to get off my plane." The blood drained from Rutherford's face completely. "Sir, you heard me. You are relieved of duty. Get off the plane. I will have a reserve captain there in 20 minutes. I don't trust you to fly a kite, let alone my flagship aircraft with my business partner on board. Pack your bag. Leave." Rutherford stood frozen. The humiliation was total. "And put the purser on," Harrison added. Patricia let out a small squeak. She looked like she was about to faint. Damon moved the phone toward her. "He wants to talk to you, Patricia." She wouldn't touch the phone. She just stared at it, tears welling up in her eyes. "Mr. Wells, I made a mistake. I thought—" "You thought what?" Harrison's voice cut through her. "You thought you could bully someone because they didn't look like your typical passenger. I built this airline on service, Miss Holloway, not snobbery. You are suspended pending an investigation. Get off the plane. Now." The silence in the cabin was deafening. The police officers, Sergeant Kowalski and his partner, had released Damon and backed away, hands raised as if to say, "We have nothing to do with this." Mr. Sterling in seat 2A was shrinking into his seat, trying to make himself invisible. Damon took the phone back. "Harrison?" "Damon, I am so incredibly sorry," Harrison said, his voice softening. "This is unacceptable. I'll have my personal assistant meet you in London with a fleet of cars. Is there anything else you need right now?" Damon looked around the cabin. He looked at the stunned faces of the passengers who had cheered for his arrest. He looked at the devastated crew members packing their bags. "Actually, Harrison," Damon said, "there is one more thing. I think the police are still confused about who the real disruption was. Maybe you can clear that up for them. Put the officer on." Damon handed the phone to Sergeant Kowalski. Kowalski took it, standing at attention. "Sergeant Kowalski, Port Authority." "Sergeant," Harrison said, "Mr. Cross is to be treated with the utmost respect. The only people who should be removed from that plane are the captain and the purser. Ensure they are escorted off the premises. And Sergeant, if Mr. Cross wants to press charges for harassment, Sky High Airways will fully cooperate with him, not the crew. Do you understand?" "Loud and clear, Mr. Wells," Kowalski said. He handed the phone back to Damon. Kowalski turned to Rutherford and Patricia. His demeanor had flipped 180 degrees. "All right, folks. You heard the boss. Grab your gear. Let's go. You're holding up the flight." Rutherford looked at Damon. The arrogance was gone. In its place was a hollow, broken look. "Mr. Cross, Save it," Damon said, turning his back on him. "Get off my plane." Rutherford grabbed his flight bag. Patricia grabbed her purse, sobbing openly. They walked the walk of shame down the aisle. As they passed seat 2A, Mr. Sterling looked away, pretending to read a magazine. "Excuse me, officer," Damon said, pointing at Sterling. "One moment." Kowalski stopped. "Yeah?" "That man," Damon said, pointing a finger at Sterling. "He claimed he saw me raise a fist at the stewardess. That was a lie. He gave a false statement to the police to incite an arrest." Kowalski looked at Sterling. "Is that true, sir?" Well, from my angle," Sterling stammered, his face turning beet red. "It looked threatening." "I have cameras in the galley," Damon said, bluffing slightly, though he knew the plane did have security feeds. "We can check." Sterling panicked. "Look, I just want to get to London. I don't want any trouble." "Officer," Damon said calmly, "I don't feel safe flying with a man who lies to the police to get other passengers arrested. It makes for a very uncomfortable environment." He used their word. Uncomfortable. Kowalski grinned. He understood the game. "You know what? I agree. Sir, grab your bag." "What?" Sterling shrieked. "You can't be serious. I'm a Diamond member." "And he's the guy on the phone with the owner," Kowalski said, thumbing toward the door. "Let's go. False reporting is a crime, you know. We can discuss it at the precinct." Sterling sputtered, grabbed his briefcase, and was escorted off the plane, protesting the whole way. Damon stood alone in the first-class cabin. The silence was heavy, but this time it was different. It was the silence of respect, or fear. He sat down in seat 1A. Mr. Cross, a young flight attendant, no older than 22, stepped out of the economy galley. She looked terrified. Her name tag read Sarah. "Yes, Sarah." I'm the junior attendant," she whispered. "The new captain is on his way. Can I get you some water, or champagne, or anything?" Damon looked at her. She hadn't said anything during the altercation, but she looked genuinely scared of losing her job by association. "Water is fine, Sarah," Damon said softly. "And Sarah?" "Yes, sir. Thank you for treating me like a human being." She nodded frantically and rushed to the galley. Damon leaned back in the seat. The plane was quiet. The karma had been served, swift and brutal, but the flight hadn't even taken off yet, and Damon knew that by the time they landed in London, the story would already be viral. He looked out the window at the tarmac. He saw Rutherford and Patricia standing by a police cruiser, arguing with each other. He closed his eyes. "Now," he thought, "I can finally get some sleep." But the story wasn't over, because when a man like Harrison Wells fires a captain and kicks a VIP passenger off a plane, the press tends to notice, and by the time Flight 882 touched down at Heathrow, the world would be watching. The cabin door finally closed, sealing the interior of the Boeing 777 in a hushed, pressurized silence. The new pilot, Captain James Anderson, had arrived 20 minutes after Rutherford's departure. He was a younger man, sharp and professional, who had personally come to Seat 1A to shake Damon's hand and apologize on behalf of the flight deck before even entering the cockpit. As the plane taxied to the runway, the atmosphere in first class was practically vibrating with tension. Mrs. Worthington, who had been so vocal about her Louis Vuitton bag earlier, was now staring rigidly out the window, refusing to make eye contact with anyone, terrified she might be next on the eviction list. Damon reclined his seat. He was exhausted. The adrenaline crash was hitting him hard. He accepted a glass of water from Sarah, the young junior attendant who had been thrust into the role of lead purser for the flight. "We'll be in the air shortly, Mr. Cross," she said softly, her hands still trembling slightly as she set the glass down on a linen coaster. "If you need anything, silence, food, conversation, you just let me know." "Thanks, Sarah," Damon said. "Just silence for now." He closed his eyes as the engines roared to life, pushing the massive aircraft into the grey New York sky. He thought it was over. He thought the drama was left back at Gate B12. He was wrong. About 2 hours into the flight, Damon connected his laptop to the in-flight Wi-Fi to check his emails. He expected to see contracts from his legal team or updates on the London merger. Instead, his inbox was flooded. Not with business, but with Google alerts. Subject: Alert, Damon Cross, Sky High Airways. Damon frowned. He clicked the first link. It sent him to Twitter, X. The hashtag #SkyHighShame was the #1 trending topic in the United States and #3 globally. He clicked the top video. It was shaky footage, clearly filmed from Seat 3I, right behind where Mr. Sterling had been sitting. The angle captured everything. Captain Rutherford's purple-faced screaming, Patricia's smug condescension, and the moment Damon held up the phone. The audio was crisp. "I don't care if you're purple. Get him off." Then, the climax, Harrison Wells's voice booming through the speakerphone. "Get off my plane." The video had 14 million views. It had been posted only 2 hours ago. Damon scrolled through the comments. The internet was not forgiving. Justice Seeker 99. "Did you see the captain's face? That wasn't just authority, that was pure bias. He looked at that hoodie and saw a criminal. Fire them all." Tech Insider. "Do they not realize they just tried to arrest Damon Cross? The guy who literally invented the AI logistics code that runs half the world's shipping? Cross Logos is worth billions. Sky High is done." Karma Queen. "The best part is the guy in the suit lying about the fist. Pure evil. Hope he gets charged." Damon sat back, stunned. He hadn't recorded it. He hadn't asked anyone to record it. But in the modern world, nothing is private. The invisible man in the hoodie was now the most visible man in the sky. Sarah walked by, looking pale. She noticed Damon looking at the screen. "The captain just got a message from the ground," she whispered, leaning in so Mrs. Worthington couldn't hear. "It's a zoo down there, Mr. Cross. The press is already camping out at Heathrow. Mr. Wells has arranged a private tarmac transfer for you." "And the crew?" Damon asked. "The ones who left?" "It's bad," Sarah said, her voice dropping. "My friend at the Newark base texted me. TMZ is live streaming from outside Captain Rutherford's house. And Mr. Sterling." "The liar?" "His company issued a statement 10 minutes ago. He's a partner at a hedge fund. Or, he was. They placed him on immediate administrative leave, pending an internal review. The internet identified him in less than 20 minutes. Damon stared at the clouds drifting past the window. He didn't feel joy. He didn't feel a thrill of victory. He felt a profound, heavy sadness. He looked at Mrs. Worthington across the aisle. She was scrolling on her phone, her face ashen. She must have seen the video. She must have seen the comments tearing apart the bystanders who did nothing. She looked up, caught Damon's eye, and immediately looked down, pulling her fur coat tighter around herself as if it could shield her from the judgment of millions. The rest of the flight passed in a surreal blur. The service was impeccable, almost aggressively so. The remaining crew treated Damon like a fragile deity. The food was 5-star restaurant quality. The champagne flowed. But the silence in the cabin was heavy. It was the silence of people realizing they had been on the wrong side of history. As the plane began its descent into London, the pilot's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Anderson. We are beginning our final approach into Heathrow. Due to special circumstances, we will be parking at a remote stand rather than the terminal. Buses will transport passengers to the terminal. Mr. Cross, please remain seated. A private car is waiting for you." Heads turned. The separation was final. Damon wasn't just a passenger anymore. He was the event. The plane touched down with a smooth thud. As it taxied to the far side of the airfield, Damon saw them through the window. A fleet of black SUVs, a cluster of police motorcycles, and standing right on the tarmac, coat flapping in the English wind, was a figure Damon recognized instantly. Harrison Wells, the billionaire owner of the airline, hadn't just sent a car, he had come himself. The plane stopped. The seatbelt sign pinged off, but nobody moved. Everyone waited to see what Damon would do. Damon stood up. He grabbed his battered rucksack. He pulled his hoodie up, not to hide this time, but because it was comfortable. It was who he was. He walked to the door. Sarah opened it. "Thank you, Sarah," Damon said. "You have a bright future. Don't let them change you." "I won't, sir," she said, beaming. Damon stepped out onto the metal stairs. The cool London air hit his face. At the bottom of the stairs, Harrison Wells was waiting. He looked furious, but when he saw Damon, his face broke into a look of genuine relief and remorse. Damon walked down. He didn't offer a handshake. Harrison pulled him into a bear hug. "I am so sorry," Harrison said into his ear. "I am so sorry." "It's not your fault, Harrison," Damon said, pulling back. "But we need to fix it." "We will," Harrison said, his jaw setting. "Watch." He turned toward the plane. The other passengers were watching from the windows. "I'm going to make sure everyone on that plane knows exactly where Sky High stands," Harrison said. He gestured to his assistants. "Get the press release ready. We're going live in 10 minutes. "What's the release?" Damon asked. Harrison smirked, a glimpse of the shark-like businessman returning. "Total restructuring and a lawsuit." 3 days later. The conference room in the Cross Logos London office was sleek, glass-walled, and overlooking the Thames. Damon sat at the head of the table, wearing a suit this time. Sharp, tailored, charcoal grey. Not because he had to, but because he felt like it. Harrison Wells sat opposite him. Between them lay a stack of newspapers. Airline apartheid. Sky High CEO cleans house. Get off my plane. The viral moment of the year. Hedge fund partner fired after false police report. Harrison took a sip of espresso. He looked tired but satisfied. "The internal investigation is closed," Harrison said, sliding a manila folder across the table. "I thought you'd want to see the results personally." Damon opened the folder. It was a dossier of justice. Captain Rutherford. Terminated for cause. Gross misconduct, filing a false federal report, and violation of passenger safety protocols. His pilot's license was currently under review by the FAA, citing psychological unfitness. He would likely never fly a commercial jet again. The report noted that he had tried to sue for wrongful termination, but the union had refused to back him after viewing the video. He was currently hiding in a rental property in Florida to escape the paparazzi. Patricia Holloway, terminated. The investigation revealed a pattern of complaints against her regarding minority passengers that had been previously ignored by middle management. She had issued a public apology on Instagram, but the comment section was so vitriolic she had to delete her account. She was reportedly trying to get a job at a boutique hotel, but her face was too recognizable. She was toxic. Mr. Sterling, the man who lied. This was the sweetest part. He wasn't just fired from his hedge fund. The Port Authority police, pressured by the viral evidence and Harrison's legal team, had charged him with filing a false police report and disorderly conduct. He was facing a massive fine, community service, and a permanent criminal record. His reputation in the City of London, where reputation is currency, was incinerated. "It's thorough," Damon said, closing the folder. "It's the bare minimum," Harrison corrected. "We're also implementing mandatory bias training for all 40,000 employees to be designed by your team, if you're willing. And we're donating the entire revenue of Flight 882 and matching it 10 times over to the NACP Legal Defense Fund." Damon nodded slowly. "And the deal? The logistics deal?" Harrison laughed. "Damon, the board is begging for it. They want to attach themselves to your brand to save our brand. If you sign today, the stock jumps 10%. If you walk, Sky High might not survive the quarter." Damon stood up and walked to the window. He looked out at the grey London skyline. He thought about the walk down the jet bridge. He thought about the feeling of the officer's hand on his arm. He thought about the shame he was supposed to feel, and the shame Rutherford tried to force on him. He turned back to Harrison. "I'll sign," Damon said. Harrison let out a breath he seemed to have been holding for 3 days. "But," Damon added, raising a finger, "there's one condition. Name it. Anything. You want a private jet? It's yours." "I don't want a jet," Damon said. "I want you to change the dress code." Harrison blinked. The dress code? Sky High's first-class dress code. Smart casual or business attire. That's what gave them the excuse, Harrison. It's archaic. It's a tool for exclusion. Damon walked back to the table and tapped the folder. "A suit doesn't make a man honest," Damon said. "And a hoodie doesn't make a man dangerous. Sterling was wearing a $3,000 suit while he lied to the police. I was wearing sweats while I tried to save your company's reputation." Harrison looked down at his own suit, then up at Damon. He smiled. "Done," Harrison said. "As of tomorrow, the policy is, come as you are. If you can afford the ticket, you belong in the seat." Damon picked up the pen. He signed the contract. The ink was dark and permanent. "One more thing," Damon said, handing the papers back. "Yeah? Sarah, the junior attendant. We promoted her," Harrison said quickly. "Senior purser." "Good," Damon said. "Make sure she gets a raise. She was the only one who saw a person, not a profile." Damon walked out of the office. He took the elevator down to the lobby. When he stepped out onto the street, the London rain had started to fall. A black town car was waiting for him, the driver holding the door open. Damon paused. He looked at the luxury car. Then he looked down the street, where a red double-decker bus was pulling up. "You know what?" Damon said to the driver. "I think I'll walk a bit. Maybe catch the bus." "Sir?" the driver asked, confused. "It's raining." Damon pulled his hood up, the same faded charcoal hoodie. "I know," Damon smiled, "but I like the fresh air." He walked into the crowd, blending in instantly. To the people passing by, he was just another guy in a sweatshirt. Nobody moved out of his way. Nobody bowed. Nobody knew that the man brushing past them had just brought an airline to its knees and reshaped corporate culture with a single phone call. And that was exactly how Damon Cross liked it. Damon Cross proved that true power doesn't need to announce itself. He didn't scream, he didn't fight physically, and he didn't use his wealth to belittle others until he had no other choice. He let the prejudice of others be their own downfall. The captain, the purser, and the lying passenger all judged a book by its cover, and they paid the ultimate price for it: their careers, their reputations, and their dignity. This story is a brutal reminder that in the age of smartphones and social media, karma is always watching. But more importantly, it teaches us that respect shouldn't be a transaction based on what someone is wearing. It should be the default. What would you have done if you were in Damon's shoes? Would you have kept your cool, or would you have lost it? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of massive justice served cold, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a story about real-life karma hitting back hard. Thanks for watching, and remember, be kind, because you never know who you're talking to.